Comments by a Conservative backbencher on a podcast hosted by a Liberal colleague have drawn a rebuke from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Here's some of what Alberta MP Arnold Viersen told Liberal MP Nathaniel Erskine-Smith.
What does it mean to strengthen protections for the preborn in Canada?
Well, there would be a recognition of their humanity, right? And then where does that flow from there?
If there's a vote on gay marriage, up or down?
I vote gay marriage down.
Even before the podcast came out, Viersen took to social media to post this: "My comments don't represent the positions of the leader nor the policies passed by Conservative Party members themselves." Poilievre responded today saying he disagrees with Viersen's comments and, quote, "When I am Prime Minister, no laws or rules will be passed that restrict women's reproductive choices, period. Canadians are free to love and marry who they choose. Same-sex marriage is legal and it will remain legal when I am Prime Minister, full stop." So, what are voters going to make of all this? Let's ask the Power Panel. Vandana Qatar is a former advisor to Prime Minister Trudeau. Lisa Raitt is a former Conservative cabinet minister. Rob Russo is the former CBC Parliamentary Bureau Chief. And Brad Levine is former communications director for the NDP. Hello, everybody. Lisa, I'll start with you. Were you surprised that Arnold Viersen said all of this, not only on the record, but on a Liberal MP's podcast?
No, not at all. I mean, there's a reason why Arnold Viersen is not a parliamentary secretary, doesn't chair a committee. You know, he is a backbencher, and he is going to talk about his personal beliefs, which we've all known forever, as long as he's been in the House of Parliament. That's what he's espoused. That's what he's talked about. That's what he believes. And that's what he's going to say. So am I surprised? No, not at all.
Do you think that it's a problem for the Conservative Party that he did say it, Lisa?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and can you expand on that? Why not? Because obviously there's been some pushback, right? So why is it not a problem?
Look, quite fairly, I mean, I would like to hear what the other folks are going to say first in terms of how they're going to try to link it to the Conservative Party, so then I could actually give a good rebuttal. Instead, I'm going first, responding to what I think are going to be their concerns. But the reality is that one individual who has a known record with respect to these feelings came out, said what he said on a public podcast, reiterated that these are not the comments of the party or the leader. The leader comes out, sends the same letter out, and here we are discussing it at 5:30. I don't understand why this is such an issue.
Okay, so Vandana, over to you. Is it an issue, or is it just, an MP talking about what has long been his personal stance?
I think what it does, it calls into question just Pierre Poilievre's leadership on these issues that we should all be unequivocal about. And I think the issue is that, what he's really caught with is talking through both sides of his mouth. On one hand, he's saying that he is pro-gay marriage, he is pro the women's right to choose, but he has caucus members who can vote freely on these issues and, espouse these beliefs. And I think how I relate to it is that leading up to 2015, when we were in third party, I remember driving Mr. Trudeau around to a MP's office to make sure that, are you in, are you out? Because if you want to be part of this caucus, if you have these beliefs or not, you have to make sure you're voting with the party. And this party is unequivocally for a woman's right to choose, as well as for gay marriage. And if you're not part of that, if you want to vote differently, then you can't be part of this caucus. You cannot be nominated. And he made that very clear to make sure that there is no movement among the caucus to make sure those rights can be revoked or changed. And we're seeing what happens in the United States when you elect people who allow for that.
Well, in fact, Vandana, though, you say he's talking about out of both sides of his mouth. Mr. Poilievre is quite unequivocal about his own stance on this. He simply has people in his party that do not share his views. Do you believe that every member of the Conservative Party ought to share Mr. Poilievre's views in order to be a member of his caucus, that there should be no political representation in the House of Commons for people who might differ on issues like abortion and gay marriage?
I don't think they have to believe in it, but they have to vote with the party on it. And I think they can't be allowed a free vote for that. And I think as much as he's equivocal on it, that's fine. But on these issues that we all should be unequivocal about, it's about, will you take the fight? And when there is pushback, will you fight back to make sure that these rights are enshrined? So that's where I think it has, and it can cause doubt to other Canadians, but also for the Liberals, it allows Pierre Poilievre to be able to respond to it in a way that they've been trying to poke him at, they've been trying to push that, we have to be careful of this conservative agenda. I think by showing that and forcing him to respond, they succeeded in doing that.
Rob, what do you make of all this?
Well, I think Lisa is right that anybody who asked the question would have known that Mr. Viersen felt this way. I think it would be no surprise to know that there are members of the Liberal caucus who feel the same way. There are fewer of them now because Mr. Trudeau has in effect made it a sine qua non. When it comes to running for the Liberals, unless you were a sitting MP before 2015, you have to say that you are in favor of a woman's right to choose. I think the one thing that Mr. Viersen says that does bear further examination is that it's not a lonely battle as far as he's concerned. How many others? I think that bears scrutiny. But I also take Mr. Poilievre at his word. This issue, as far as these leaders, is settled and has been settled since 1991. That was the last time legislation in the House of Commons actually passed to restrict abortion. But I'm reminded of what happened after that. What happened after that was that there was a vote in the Senate on this legislation, and a progressive Conservative senator, Pat Carney, surprised her own party, many in her own party, by voting against this legislation. It ended in a tie. The Speaker chose not to break it. So there was an attempt 30 years ago to do it. A lot of people might think that's old and ancient history, but Roe v. Wade was old and ancient history too. And the words of Pat Carney shortly before she passed away was, things change. And if you care about this issue, you have to remain vigilant. So I don't believe that this is something that Pierre Poilievre is going to bring forward. I think he's sincere. But is it something that could change in the future? Roe v. Wade has taught us that it could.
Brad, I wonder what you make of particularly the comments from Arnold Viersen on all of this, the statement he put out, where he did, to some extent, have to sort of swallow a fair bit of his agenda. Was that the right thing for him to do?
Well, he had no choice in the matter if he wanted to continue to sit as a Conservative member of Parliament in the House of Commons. That was written by Pierre Poilievre's office. It was quick and it was unequivocal. So from all of this, one of my takeaways is that, and I think there's lots of evidence to show that this caucus and this party is run ruthlessly. The communications is tight. That was an unequivocal. Pierre Poilievre does not agree with anything that I said on this podcast. He said it in the past, and he's saying it again today. I think that the Liberal Party are having a difficult time trying to find the punches on which to land on Poilievre. Same with the New Democrats. I think the New Democrats have a little bit more leeway on it. But the question is the matter of choice and marriage equality issues upon which the cross-pressured voter, the Liberal Conservative cross-pressured voter, are those issues that are going to move the needle for Trudeau and the Liberals in the lead up to the next federal election. I would submit that it's probably worth a try, but I don't think that this is the time to do it. And I think that it gave Poilievre an opportunity to hit the ball squarely over the fence in terms of telling Canadians who may not have cared. The number of Canadians who only vote on choice as a matter, being the anti-choice, is so small. They're already voting predominantly for the Conservative Party anyway. There are no new votes to get it. And Lisa would know this better. I saw this issue being handled, I thought, quite deftly by Harper back in the day, where he did not want to lose an election over this issue. There's only votes to lose for the Conservatives, not to gain for the Conservatives. So they needed to quickly squelch this issue. And it being an inconsequential backbencher from a very safe Conservative seat, he towed the line very quickly. And in fact, it was the anti-choice spokesperson in the media today that was saying that he actually made a mistake by adopting that message on social media, and that he turned his back on his beliefs, and that he should be ashamed of himself, I think was the term, or something to that effect. So I think it's a step backwards for the anti-choice movement today, as opposed to wind in their sails.
Lisa, I am.
If I may, Catherine.
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Rob.
Just one point. Yeah, I would say that a lot of Conservatives felt that Mr. Harper did lose an election in 2004 on this issue because an MP named Randy White,
yes,
on another social issue, not on abortion.
To heck with the courts.
Said, to heck with the courts.
That's right.
on same-sex marriage, and that motivated people who might not have come out to vote for the Liberals to do so. And I think Brad is right when he says they can try this. It is a little early, but the Liberals have been raising this issue Mr. Viersen gave them a reason to go after it again. But it does, I think, belie some of the despair in the Liberal ranks that they're raising this issue as forcefully as they're raising it right now, a year before an election.
Lisa, I am interested in the way in which all of this came to light, which was a conversation between two MPs. And Mr. Viersen has said, well, he felt that they were coming on to talk about a work that they were sort of doing together about protecting people from exploitation online, that he felt caught a bit sort of flat-footed by all of this, and the extent to which this moment makes that kind of cross-party conversation more difficult. But also, Lisa, you said that at the beginning you wanted to hear what other folks have to say. So if there's anything else you want to make a point about as well, feel free.
You're very kind, Catherine. I can say that just like you guys say to us sometimes, it's all off the record, don't worry about it. It's never off the record. And don't assume that when you're going in to talk to a Liberal person on a podcast that they're not going to ask you questions that are uncomfortable. The same thing if somebody was coming on to do a podcast with me as a Conservative. You have to expect that I'm going to ask tough questions that go to where they're coming from. But I appreciate hearing what everyone had to say. I think the big differentiator is that Pierre Poilievre recognizes that there's a difference between people holding convictions of their own and what the government does. Mr. Harper had exactly the same kind of approach, which is you may hold your personal convictions and we respect you and you're going to be free to have that kind of thing, but it is not going to come into the play of government by any means whatsoever, and we're going to stop it from happening. And a very clear message was sent today by the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, and I love the fact that he wished everybody happy Pride Month.
Vandana, one thing that really struck me listening to the exchange on this podcast is Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, as he was trying to draw Arnold Viersen out on this, kept saying, like, well, I guess that means that you want some restrictions in place around access to abortion. And the way that Nathaniel Erskine-Smith was speaking, you got the sense that he perhaps didn't really understand where Arnold Viersen stood on these issues. Arnold Viersen kept coming back to him and saying, I don't even think, we're not using the same language. We're not even talking about the same thing. I just wonder what you make of the idea that a Liberal MP might be a bit caught off guard by positions that, as Lisa said from the outset, are very much on the record, particularly when it comes to somebody like Arnold Viersen, who's been in the House of Commons for some time. Vandana, I see your lips moving. I'm sure you're saying insightful things, but I think we're having a little technical. Oh, you're there now, Vandana.
Okay, we're good?
There we go. We're good. So yeah, what did you make of that?
I think, Mr. Viersen, as much as he's served in the House of Commons for some time, may not have been as familiar to Mr. Nathaniel Erskine-Smith. I will say I didn't actually know his positions either. So it could be something as clear as what does that mean exactly for you? I don't think Nate meant to put him into a trap, but really wanted to understand where he was coming from, what he was talking about. I do think Mr. Nathaniel Erskine-Smith tries to find ways to connect with members from across the aisle. So I think that's really where he comes from. That being said, I'm not sure exactly what he was thinking. I wasn't there. I haven't spoken to him about the podcast, but I think he really just wanted to understand exactly what is going to happen. Do you really feel that these are things that, you need clarity on? Are these things that, you feel very strongly about? And what exactly is it? Because some of these issues can be vague and they can be broad. And I think he really just wanted to better understand.
Brad, I wonder, a lot of the attention has, of course, been on abortion access, but Arnold Viersen also came out against gay marriage, which I think may have surprised even more Canadians. Do you think, you sort of touched on this earlier, but the forcefulness with which Pierre Poilievre responded is enough to deaden the folks who may have taken offense to what Mr. Viersen said?
Yeah, time will tell, but today was an opportunity for Poilievre to for those that didn't know where he stood on the issue, and obviously in the coming days when he follow-up questions and those kinds of things. Obviously, other members of caucus will have microphones in their face. The media will seek to get further clarification from more backbenchers who may come from the social conservative side of the Conservative Party's coalition. So he's going to have to keep getting that making sure that message is maintained throughout. I think that this issue, and to Rob's point, Roe v. Wade, but I don't believe that the one individual being able to appoint Supreme Court justice. I don't think it's the same up here at this stage. I think that this is an issue that, by and large, most Canadians have settled with. People are, frustrated with cost of living. They're frustrated with making, the bills pay. There's lots of economic insecurity throughout the country, and I just think that there can't be any room left to take a step back in terms of those. This was a lightning round kind of question, up or down. I'm sure if you put it to a free vote in that caucus, there would be more than the other parties in terms of people wanting to overturn marriage equality. And Canadians will have to, where does marriage equality sit on the list of priorities right now? Do they want to hear their candidates, their politicians talking about it? I would submit no. It's a settled issue. And on the opening days of Pride Month, most Canadians and most corporate Canada have already kind of moved on and said we're behind marriage equality in this country.
Okay. Well,
I can add to that, Catherine.
Just quickly, Vandana.
I
Yeah.
was going to say that I don't think it's that clear. I think there has been an increase in hate towards this community. I think there's been an increase of polarization. I think people want clarity on this issue. And I think, as much as I don't think for broadly, it means everything to everyone, but I think for women, millennial women, Gen Z women, who everyone is competing with to vote for them, I think that could matter to some people.